Okay, so I'll just talk about myself first, that how my career trajectory has been, and then I will talk about how the structure of this particular session would be. Okay, so starting with myself, I'm currently working as a Wells Fargo India, and Wells Fargo is a banking fourth largest bank in US, and that's where. Can you please go on the mute if someone is not speaking? Yeah. So basically, I'm currently working as a product manager with Wells Fargo India, where I am looking after mostly the payment products of Wells Fargo. And apart from that, I have experience along digital payments, some part into commerce and into telecom and fintech products. Basically, overall, I have different flavors in terms of products where I've worked on, and a kind of different domains. If I talk about companies prior to Wells Fargo, I have worked with Home Credit, I have worked with Paytm, I have worked with Snapdeal for some time, and some part into telecom where I worked with Subex. Okay, so that's how my career trajectory went off, and I do have around total 9 years of experience, and that's where basically I got the opportunity to work on different products, digital products. Majorly, I have worked across B2C products. So that was the short introduction about myself. Then, sorry, anyone asking something? Yeah. So then, coming to the structure of this meeting, what I will be doing is I will be talking about the fundamentals of product. Then, in some part, I will be talking about the portion of MVP, and then I will be talking about product prioritization. A basic thumb rule: I don't want this conversation to be a one-way conversation where it is going to be a class lecture where I'm talking something and you're just listening, right? Because I could not see anyone faces, right? So it would be like that I'm talking in front of my laptop, right? So if you have any questions, just unmute yourself at the same point and you can ask your question, and I prefer that way. And I prefer this conversation to be more interactive. So basically, if you have some points, you can raise it at the same point, right? Rather than making it a conventional class, school or class, right? So with that, the first thing that I wanted to talk about is basically, what do you mean by a product? Anyone who wants to talk about it? What do you think about a product? What is a product? One. Expecting at least few responses that we all understand what is a product, right?
Product basically enables you do things, make it easier for you. Uh, that's what my understanding of product is.
Great point. Yeah.
Hi, Ranjan, Swindra. For me, product can be anything from could be from a LED bulb to an automotive in terms of physical product, or it can be a website also. The product can actually be anything.
Yeah. What else?
Hi, Aditya here. Product is something which is utilized by the customer.
Good point. What else?
Hi, Akash here. I would say that product is something from which we can derive a value. It could be subjective or monetary.
Okay. Very good point. Okay. So with that, I would like to talk here. So basically, this is a kind of definition. What I could think of a product is basically an object or a system which you offer to the market to satisfy the needs or wants of a customer, right? So let's say if I'm talking, if I'm taking example, Let's say if you have a wooden table in your house, right? That is also a product for me. And if I talk about a lump of iron, that is also a product for me. And if I talk about manufacturing, about these two things, if I talk about a table, it got manufactured by a carpenter. It actually gone through a same supply chain, right? You have distribution systems, right? You actually, after a carpenter created that wooden table, it has been given to a distributor, and from there it has been given to a retailer, and then it is going to the customer, right? That is also one product. And if I talk about a lump of iron, that is again getting created by, let's say, some mining industry, and that's where a same distribution channel to some steel industry who will be utilizing that particular lump of iron, right? So both are product for me. So how it actually differentiate is basically what kind of benefit or value it is giving to the customer. As someone has correctly mentioned, that it totally depends on the perspective of the customer. The product is for a customer, right? I can build anything as a producer, right? But it will totally depend on the customer, if customer values that particular thing, right? If I talk about an example of drilling machine, right? What do you think that drilling machine would actually add value to the customer? Customer buys actually the ability to hang a painting on the wall, right? So that's the end goal of a value that I could think of the drilling machine as a product. If I'm buying for it for, let's say, 500 rupees, by the end of the day, what I would be doing with that product, right? What is the benefit that is there in my mind as a customer, that what I will be doing with that product? So that's how the product would be defined. Then the next point that could come to us is, what is a service? Anyone? What do you think is a service?
Service is anything that you provide to fulfill a need.
Okay, good point. And then how it is different from?
They both come hand in hand, if you ask me. Uh, you can probably explain that in clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other point from anyone about a service?
If I can follow. So I think service is something that's offered, and product is something that's bought in a very good way.
Product is something?
Is bought by a customer, and service is something that's offered uh, by the enterprise or the company.
Okay. Then let's say let's say if I'm going for a haircut, is that a product or a service?
That's a service.
But I am paying for that service, right? Getting a haircut.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say if I'm going to a bank asking for creating a fixed deposit for me, is that a service or a product?
Actually, I would say it is both. The fixed deposit itself could be a product, and the bank is offering the service. It's actually both. And sorry, like someone said, it goes hand in hand in this case.
So yeah, so a great point. So if I talk about, let's say if I go to a Starbucks, right, is that a product or a service?
Okay, I just sorry, assuming it's for me. Starbucks, I would say it's a product and not a service. Selling service,
Okay.
they're
So
selling a product.
yeah, yeah. So if I have to actually add a point over there, definitely Starbucks is a product, right? So basically, once I get into Starbucks, right, the other things what I actually see is, it's not that I am going to Starbucks only to just get a coffee, right? I can get a coffee from any local store or a Madras cafe, or let's say Chayos, right? I can get that coffee from anywhere. But what is the point? I can go to coffee cafe day as well, right? So there is something which is associated with that coffee, which I'm going to buy it as a cumulative offering from that Starbucks, right? So if I get into Starbucks, the first thing that I could see is ambience, right? A beautiful smile from the person, right? Basically adding the way they are actually packaging it, right? The coffee, the kind of designs they have in their outlet, right? The location they have their outlet in, right? So all those things, right? Once you get into the door of a Starbucks store, right, it actually combines with a lot of other intangible things which actually accumulate to a final offering with that coffee which is given to a customer, right? Because a beautiful smile or a kind of basically the a good greeting to the customer, hello sir, good morning sir, please come to our store, right? And what kind of coffee you would want, that is the part of service. So if for me, if I talk about Starbucks, that is a combination of a product and a service. It's neither a product nor a service standalone, right? It's a combination, it's a hybrid thing, right? So there are things which are intangible things which are associated with it, and there are tangible things which is a coffee that I'm taking it out of the store, right? So that's a hybrid thing. It's not only a product or a service. Okay. Then coming to the differentiation part of it, as someone has mentioned, right? So products, say if I talk about a pen, right? Pen is a product for me. That is a tangible thing, right? And if I talk about service totally intangible. Let's say if I talk about a haircut, I go to an haircut, but there are things which are, let's say, in the physical contact too, right? The person who is actually coming to you, holding your head, right, using scissors, all those things are getting involved. So some products, some physical intangibility is there as part of that haircut service. It's not only product or a service, right? Similarly, if I talk about a pen, pen is a product and it has a form, right? So if I've sold a pen to a customer, I if customer says that I want a pencil, I customer can't transform that pen to a pencil, right? So every product has a form, right? And similarly, if I talk about a service does not have a form, right? So if I am actually giving you a haircut, the service, I can actually customize it based on our need, right? So I can add more things. I'll add, let's say, a hair shard too in that. I'll basically improve that service by using good products, beauty products over there. If you are coming for a massage or a let's say facial, anything, okay. So I can improve. There is no specific form to a service. It can be modified based on the demand of the customer. And third thing is, a product is a standardized format, right? A pen that has been designed for a customer, that is totally standard, right? That's how it is going to be, the pen with a refill, right? All those things is standardized across market. And if I talk about a service, I can customize it at any point of time. Any questions till this point before I move ahead?
So in a nutshell, you say that service uh, is a cherry on top of your product.
So basically, if I will be giving a product, right, you are somewhere close there, right? So if I give a product, right, it's not that I'm only giving that product, right? So if I'm buying something, there is an additional things, right? Intangible things, that what you mentioned, cherry on the top, right? So there is something, some intangible properties or attributes are already associated with that product offering, which is making it more better or a good customer experience for the end customer. Okay, so it
Correct.
could be like that. If yeah, if let's say if I'm buying a mobile phone, right? If I'm buying it from Amazon, it is actually giving me not only the mobile phone, but the a good delivery time, good description of the product over there in the website, right? So all those in handy with that mobile phone. But if I am going to Chroma, if I will definitely get the same phone over there, but the kind of experience and the kind of service will vary in Amazon and in Chroma, right? So things will customize in terms of service when I'm offering product from different sources or different channels.
Got it. Makes sense.
Okay, then I'm coming to a concept that is a product, whole product concept. The concept is called whole product concept, right? So which actually tells you that how product evolves, right? So if I'm building something, let's take an example of a mobile phone. The what could be the basic thing that a customer would want, or the core product of that particular mobile phone, or the core feature of that mobile phone? SMS, or maybe making a call. These are the core features, right? Without that, there is no use of mobile phone, right? Okay. So basically that is the core product of it, right? And then coming to the second part, that is generic product, right? Generic product works as, so basically if, as I've taken the example of a mobile phone, making a call or sending an SMS, that is the core feature of that particular product, right? But as the product evolves more, right, would add basically additional actual product with some tangible qualities. So let's say if I'm selling a smartphone, right, what I would be adding is, let's say I would be adding a camera over there, right? I would be adding some touchpad over there rather than just putting a physical button over there. So all those things, these are the attributes we keep on adding to the core product. That actually lies into the generic product category. Okay. And third is expected product, which actually provides you generic product plus other attributes that customer wants, right? So if basically if I'm adding features to that, so if I have added a camera into the smartphone, there is a requirement that customer would expect, that I would expect a 20 megapixel camera, right? If I'm adding a battery, customer would expect that my phone should last by 24 hours. So those additional attributes, what a customer would want from that particular mobile phone or any other product, that is the expected product, with the core features, some generic product features, and with the additional attributes over there, right? That of a camera of good quality, a good battery backup, right? So all those things, night modes, so all those things would be added as an extra attributes over there as part of expected product. Then coming to the augmented product part of it, actually gives you a cutting edge from your competition, right? So basically if I'm talking about a phone, let's say Samsung comes into a foldable phone category, right? Or LG comes into the multiple screen category, right? So you can use that as a tablet, or you can use it as a phone after you fold it, right? So that is the kind of augmented product, right? That's where you try to keep, or you try to create a competitive edge in your product that is not getting replicated easily by the competitors. And then coming to the potential product part of it, where you add some tangible and intangible features, right? Let's say if I'm adding a nanotechnology in the battery, right, which will improve your battery life, right? Or if I'm actually using the liquid buttons, right, that is coming as part of the technology evolvement in the mobile phones, right? So all those things which are not in the market as of now, and it has been envisioned as the potential product going forward, maybe 2 years down the line, so 3 years down the line, that actually comes under potential product category. Any questions on this part? Okay, then coming to the minimum viable product, that is MVP. Can someone tell me what is an MVP according to them? One.
So MVP is basically before taking just an example of a startup. So before somebody wants to launch a full-fledged product, to understand how the market would react towards it and so on, it's very good to do an MVP, minimum viable product, and launch it, and then see how the response is, and then build on further features on it. So a good example is sorry, the all-in storage one. I'm just going to call the company's name and then I go out about it. Just to launch and then see how the market reacts to it, and then build on from there, which will help in terms of saving on resources whether it's man-hours or the amount of cost or time spent on it. So we'll just to understand the market feedback on this.
Great point. Anyone else?
Hi Aditya here. MVP is we can say the must-have features in the product that we supposed to launch at the start.
Yeah. What else?
Hi, Siddharth here. This is something that you provide with minimum features that early adopters, early adopters can use and give you feedback.
Yeah. Good point. What else? So, so I think some of you have actually mentioned the correct definition, I would say, but I'll add something over there. Okay. So basically, MVP is a version of the product which will actually help you get the validated data from the customer. Okay. So if I say validated data, what I mean by validated data is, so if you, let's say if you're building a product, maybe let's say if I'm taking the example of mobile phone itself, okay, and you are going with two major features or the must have features, that is, let's say making a call or sending the SMS, right? And you are actually giving it to the customer. What you are trying to do is basically till the point you are discussing on that this is going to be my product and this is going to be my customer persona. Okay, so I think you some of the people must be persona. So customer persona is where you actually create an image of the customer, that is the virtual image of the customer, based on, let's say if you say that my customer is going to be between the age of 26 to 35 years of age, right? And that person would be from tier 3 city, right? And that person will be having some behavioral attribute, right? Some spending capacity, some psychological attributes, right? So that's how you actually envision or visualize a ideal persona for your product, right? So that's where you think that these are the attributes for the ideal customer or the early adopters for my product, right? And this is going to be my customer, but you are not sure about that if this customer is going to buy it. That is just the hypothesis, right? And you did some empirical calculation right over there, and you think that this is going to be, or there is a probability that this customer might buy my product, but you're not sure about that, right? So once we actually launch a MVP with some mandatory feature or necessary feature, as you guys have mentioned, right, we actually try to get the validated data from the market, right? If the product, what I have built, and the market or the consumer persona, if both are fitting with each other or not, right? So we are trying to actually have the product market fit from there. So as I mentioned, that MVP is that version actually allows you to collect the validated learning with least effort, right? Because as you are not putting a lot of effort over there, right? You are putting some of the effort in creating a workable model, right? And actually giving it to certain set of customer just to validate if the product is the correct value to the customer, right? To basically to check the product market fit. Then one other concept that I wanted to talk about as part of MVP is basically MVP became popular in context of lean startup. Okay, so some of you might have seen heard about lean startup. Anyone knows about lean startup? Anyone who has heard about it?
It's a book.
Your voice is not audible. Yeah. Hello. Hello. Am I audible? Because I could not hear.
Ranjan, you are audible.
Yeah. So I think we have lost the person who was trying to talk. Anyone who wants to talk about the lean startup thing? Is having some understanding about the lean startup, then we will talk about it.
Hi, Siddharth here. Basically, lean startup is something that you produce. we produce things faster. And MVP is one of the ways where you produce what is necessary and get the feedback from.
Okay, got it. Okay, so basically this concept, lean startup thing was introduced by Eric Ries, okay, the person who actually from that lean startup thing, right, MVP concept came in, right? So basically, if I talk about lean startup, that was a concept designed to create new products or services under condition of extreme uncertainty. Okay, so as I mentioned, condition of extreme uncertainty, and in that condition you are actually developing a product or a service. Why it is extreme uncertainty? Can someone talk about it? That why we say extreme uncertainty? We talked about this just a couple of minutes back. Anyone? Okay, so basically, if I mention that extreme uncertainty, that's where that the customer that you have decided, the market that you have decided, right, and the product that you are actually creating, you don't know about exactly about both the things, right? Not about the customer. You have a vague idea that this might be my customer or the early adopter, and secondly, you know that the product what I'm actually offering to this set of customer might find it valuable, but we don't know whether the customer will like that product or not. So if I say extreme uncertainty, that's where both these elements, we are not sure if this will actually fit into each other, right? The what product market fit is, right? And that's what lean startup concept tells about, right? That under extreme conditions, we are trying to build a usable version of the product that is called MVP, right? And MVP basically targets the early adopters who actually need the features of MVP most acutely, right? So if I say acutely, that is basically the customers who are in the extreme need of that product, right? So this could be early adopter, or this could be the most desirable customer. Okay, and the one of the last point that I wanted to mention is basically do not fall in love with MVP. Most of the companies, what they do is basically while they actually create MVP, they try to put hundreds of features into that MVP, and they say that everything to the customer, but that's not the correct definition of an MVP, right? It is just the validation if my customer is going to see the value in the product what I'm offering, nothing more than that, nothing less than that. So basically that's where if you are actually flooding it with 15 features over there and you are actually giving it to the customer, you never know, you have already spent a lot of time, resource, money over there in creating those 15 features as part of MVP itself, but you don't know whether customer will like it or not, right? So it is going to be a huge loss for the company itself, right, while building that product and offering to the customer who is not liking that, right? So it's the best way, in the minimum time, minimum effort and resource, you are actually trying to build a usable version, and that's where you actually giving it to the customer for validation. So don't fall in love with MVP. That's where put everything into MVP and then give it to the customer. Okay, any questions till this point before we move ahead? Anyone? I'll take it as a no. Someone trying to speak something?
One question here. So I understand the concept of MVP in case of startups, but somebody like Wells Fargo, they already have their products in the market. So they might be coming up with new features, but how does the concept of MVP is applicable there?
Sure, good question. So basically, MVP thing works across organizations, right? It could be a basically short-scale startup, or it could be a multinational company, right? The only difference is, let's say, if I talk about, let's say, Wells Fargo is trying to introduce a new payment channel, let's say real-time payments, right? That's where you tap on one button and your money is transferred, right? That's a new offering they have, right? So if a company like Wells Fargo, or let's say maybe Amazon, or some big organization, they are trying to launch their product, right, as an MVP, at that moment the size of their MVP is quite bulkier comparative to the product that will be launched by the startup, because the product what you are actually trying to launch, right, there is a version in some way or the other way, it already exists in the market, right? So let's say if I'll be launching a smartphone today, I would be launching with the bare minimum features which already exist in the market, right? I need to be have I need give the smartphone with all the smartness that I could give, right? I need to give 5G, I need to give 5000 mAh battery, right? I need to at least give 30 megapixel camera, right? So all those things, right? These are the preliminary requirement for a MVP product, which already exists in the market in one form or the other form, right? So the only difference, I would say, the primary difference what actually varies with those startups or the big companies is basically the kind of product you are trying to launch. If I'm trying to launch a product which already exists in the market in some form or the other, I need to have all the things which are already there, because customer is already expecting all those 10 features which is there in the market. What you will be offering is some 11th feature or 12th feature on top of it, right? So the size of or the bulkiness of the MVP varies with the kind of product you are trying to deliver as part of a startup or a Wells Fargo ecosystem or a Amazon ecosystem. Hope I tried to answer your question.
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Then if we don't have any other question, we can actually go to our next section, that is feature prioritization framework. Okay, so the one thing that I would want to highlight here, if you actually think of understanding a prioritization framework, you would see tens of prioritization frameworks in on internet, right? Or the type or different companies might be using different prioritization frameworks. So the only thing that I wanted to say here is you need to focus on the the mindset of the product that you are trying to build, right, rather than just sticking with some framework. Okay, because one or the other framework will work for you, right? So the technicality or the vocabulary of the things that we are trying to learn is not the primary thing. The primary thing is understanding the product mindset, right? You need to have that mindset while you are building a product, that what are the priority things that I need to deliver to the customer, which will create the highest value for the customer, right? So I might be using any of the framework out there in the market, right? But every framework is actually required to give one of the priority list of the features that we want to give to the customer, right? Considering what kind of value we are adding to the customer, right? So that was the point I wanted to call out here, that don't stick with one of the framework, because there could be, I have mentioned 4 here, there could be 5 that you must have heard that these are very popular frameworks, but learning only that framework will not help if you don't have that kind of mindset towards product building. Okay, so that is very important. But as this is the part of our session, I will definitely go through some of the frameworks what I feel are generally getting used in the market, or one or the other companies. Okay, so the first framework is value, cost, and solvability, right? So this is the framework where we take into account 3 attributes: value, cost, and solvability, right? So that's where, as we are, let's say, if I'm taking the context where I'm trying to prioritize the features for my MVP, right? What is going to be the correct feature or the correct set of features, or the prioritized set of feature or must have features for the customer that I want to give as part of MVP, right? And that's where, let's say, one of the assumed value, that is basically assumed value as the attribute for that particular prioritization. Okay, so if I'm assuming that this is the highest value feature for the customer, I'm assuming it because we have not tested it, we have not launched it, we don't have the validated data. So that's why I've mentioned. So we are assuming that this is going to be the most highest value product for the customer. Okay, and the second is cost, which will require the least cost to develop, the cost effectiveness in terms of number of developers or the number of QA, the number of user researchers it would require to actually develop that product. So in terms of cost, it should be cost effective, and the one most easily solvable in terms of complexity, right? So if I actually draw a table, right, where in one column I will be entering feature list, feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, feature 4, and in the other columns I will be mentioning value, cost, and solvability. And if I'm, let's say, putting a score out of 1 to 10, right, I would be able to come up with a final score against every feature. Based on that, let's say if I'm putting a value as 7 for one feature, right, cost as 5 for other that feature, and solvability is, let's say, 6. Okay, I will be coming up with a score at the a final score, and that will actually tell me that with this score, which are the higher priority items for me and which are the lower priority items for me. So that is one of the framework that exists. Any questions as part of this framework before we go to the second one?
Right. One question here, Siddharth here. So,
Yeah.
like, so that way, if we keep comparing features and their cost effectiveness, but what about the existing features that they're there? Because there is some part where we need to do code refactoring or revamping the codes. How do you assess it with the existing new features that you're going to go with?
So basically, yeah, a valid point. Okay, so I'm not sure if you are aware of the concept of agile product development. Okay, so in agile product development, how we actually bifurcate the requirement is basically one of the requirement would be functional requirements, which is actually the business requirements for the customer. Okay, so those are the feature list. The other set of list would be actually to provide the enablement, right? So those we say as enabler or the non-functional requirements, right? So as you mentioned, code refactoring or maybe performance testing, right? Or if we are actually trying to improve the latency of an API, right? So all these things actually comes as NFR, non-functional requirement, right? So these are the technical enablers which will actually help you achieve what you want to achieve through that particular feature, right? So while we prioritize, we can actually give the addition here the value in terms that how impactful it would be. Let's say if I'm trying to reduce the time for an API from 15 seconds, so let's say 5 seconds, okay, as a response time. So this will going to improve the customer experience, right? Customer does not need to wait on the same page for 15 seconds just because that API is not responding, right? So somehow it is getting to impact the customer experience. So the value it could be higher because this API will have a direct impact on the customer experience. So while I'm putting a score, I will be putting the value accordingly. Similarly, cost, if I try to reduce the response time of that API, what would be the development cost for it, right? And what is the solvability in terms of complexity, how complex it is to reduce the response time of that API or that code refactoring we are trying to do, right? So it would be somehow correlated with the value you are trying to the customer through that particular feature. So that's how you score. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Then the second concept that actually comes in or a framework that comes in is weighted shortest job first, right? So this is the model which has been introduced majorly into the agile development process, right? So basically in some companies where you know that the classical agile or the scaled agile are getting used, to prefer this particular model, right? Weighted shortest job first, right? So this also consists of actually giving a score that is WSJF score. And with that score, how do you calculate that score is WSJF is equals to cost of delay upon job duration, right? So basically cost of delay is something that if I don't release this particular feature in, let's say, in month of February, what would be the cost of delay? What all things will get impacted? How much of the revenue we will be losing? How much of the user we will be losing, right? So that's how we calculate the cost of delay. How critical is to release this particular feature in the upcoming release cycle. Okay, and second is the job duration. Definitely it can be calculated in terms of man days or story points or maybe in different ways, right? The only point is you need to have a relative measure, right? So feature 1 is taking, let's say, 5 as part of the job duration, and if you see that this feature 2 is more complex, you can give 7 to that particular job duration for feature 2, right? So similarly you actually put the value for job duration. And the cost of delay consists of three elements. First is user business value that you are trying to add as part of that feature. Second is time criticality. Criticality, as I mentioned, that how critical if we don't release this particular feature as part of February release or March release, right? So that time criticality plays a huge role here. Okay. And third is risk reduction or opportunity enablement, right? So basically, some of the features also reduces some risk, right? So basically, if you are trying to release a feature which will reduce your fraud losses, right? So if there is an opportunity enablement or risk reduction with this particular feature, so that score you will be adding as part of the third element, right? And if you add all those three things, right, user business value, time criticality, and third is risk reduction or opportunity enablement, you will come up with a cost of delay value. Okay. And if you divide that with job duration or job size, you will be coming up with a score that will actually basically the higher the score it would be, it will actually give you that we need to actually take this as the higher priority thing. Any questions on this particular model before we go to the next one? I'll take this as no. Okay. The third model I wanted to talk about was the RICE model. Okay. So this is also a very popular model used in different companies. Okay. So RICE model is basically you are considering about reach, impact, confidence, and effort. Okay. So basically we also come up with a score here, and this is also a mathematical model where you actually try to calculate reach, multiply with the impact, and then multiply with the confidence, and if you divide it by the effort or the total effort which will require to develop this particular feature, it will actually come in the denominator, and then you finally come up with a RICE score against every feature. Okay. Coming to the point, what is a reach? What do you understand by reach, right? So reach is basically, if let's say if I am building a feature, let's say if I'm building a feature of, let's say, payment on delivery, right? As part of Amazon, I'm the product manager for Amazon, and I'm actually releasing a feature that will actually help you pay the amount after the delivery is done, right? So with this particular feature, we need to understand that the number of customers or the target group, right, it is going to get impacted by this particular feature, right? So let's say if I have a number that, let's say, around 10 lakh people will get impacted by this particular feature, they will see this feature or they will use that feature, right? This will tell me the reachability of that particular feature, right? Second is impact, right? So with that cash on delivery model, that's where if I am trying to actually improve the conversion, right? So basically cash on delivery comes into picture only when, right, if the customer does not want to pay now, right, and if that customer does not have the feasibility to pay it through some payment mode now, you can actually pay once we deliver the product, right? So what we are trying to do is basically we are improving the success rate or the conversion of the order that has been taken up, right? So if that is the metric what we are targeting, how much it will actually move that metric, right? So if that is the North Star metric for me or the primary metric for me, how much it will actually impact or move by this particular feature. So that is the impact. And third is confidence. Confidence is basically the numbers that I've taken, right? Reachability, I've taken 10 lakhs, or impact, let's say if I'm saying that it will improve the conversion by 10%, right? That 10% is impact. So how confident we are in terms of numbers, what we are taking in terms of reachability or the kind of impact it will create, right? That will come under confidence in terms of percentage. Let's say if I'm 85% confident on that kind of data that I have taken for reachability and impact, that comes under confidence. Divided by effort. Effort is again your it's not only the development effort, it could be any effort in order to actually make the final feature, right? You go through the user research team, you go to the design team to create the mocks, right? You get the development done, you have QAs, right? You have system architect. So all those mandates efforts, you put it as part of the denominator, and then finally you come up with the RICE score. Higher the RICE score, priority is higher for that feature, and that's how you come up with the prioritization through RICE model. Any questions till this point?
Ranjan, I'm sorry, I had a of network issue, so in case you called it out already. But are you kind of calling out that we need to apply this model for every feature that would be launched, or is it for the overall product?
No. So I'm not saying that you need to use one of these models. What I'm talking about, right? So basically the intention was to pick some of the models that are getting used very frequently in the market across companies, right? There could be more models. So one model could be Cano model that you have heard of it, right? Second could be the value versus cost model, right? So there could be multiple models getting used. What I actually called out initially was you can use any of these models which you are comfortable in using it, right? It's not mandatory that you use only these four and don't use so there are tens of models that you can utilize. It will totally depend on your comfort and the kind of data that you have to actually leverage it as part of this model, and the kind of features that you're trying to develop, where the collating the data for against these attributes would be easy for you, right? So it's totally on your comfort to use any of the model which exists in the market. This is just the snippet of what I find it getting used by multiple people across market, but you can utilize anyone. Did it
Sure,
answer your
clear.
question? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other question?
Yeah, one question here. So how is this applicable for fintech? Is it like different, like prioritization is different for fintech versus other companies?
No. Yeah. So basically, this model is not dependent on what kind of product you are looking at, right? So if I am the part of e-commerce industry, I can utilize this. If I am the part of payment industry, I can utilize any of the models. So these models are not bind with any industry. So don't think like that way that fintech industry might be using any other model. No, these models are generic models, and this could be applied to any product development that we do. It could be a physical product industry too, right? Where I am actually building mobile phones, right? This prioritization would be required there as well. No? That if I need to add this feature as part of this nanotechnology, if I need to implement it now or not, right? That prioritization could be done as part of any mobile phone industry too, right? So it is not bind with any of the industry or domain. Okay. Did it answer your question?
Yes, Ranjan, can you
Yeah,
explain Moscow?
Sorry.
Moscow.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so I tried to basically cover that as part of, let's say, skimming through that. Okay, so Moscow model is where you have multiple buckets, right? So MO, that is must have, SO is the should have, CO is the could have, and W is that won't have, right? So you will be having multiple buckets. Okay, and the list of features that you have, right? 10 features, let's say if you have 10 features to prioritize, you will be putting all those features into different buckets, right? So if you see that, let's say as part of, let's say, addition of a camera in the smartphone, right? If that is a feature, you would put it by, you might put it as part of must have, right? Considering your customer persona, that this is the most usable feature and this should be must have, right? So you will have. Should have is basically, it's not must have, but if it would be adding a value to the customer. Anyone saying something? Okay, so basically what I'm saying is these are the buckets: must have, should have, could have, and won't have. Won't have is like where you feel that this would create dissatisfaction among the customer, right? So you will be putting it in the won't have bucket. And similarly, could have, it is like more putting a delight factor over there, right? Or basically improving the UI or the layout, it might add a delight factor over there, right? So that's how you actually distribute the features among four buckets, and that's how you prioritize it. So that is all about Moscow. Any questions?
Hi, Ranjan, Akash here. In the RISE model, which you have explained, so efforts can be quantified in terms of man hours or story points, I would say. But how will you quantify confidence and reach so that a mathematical formula can be applied on it?
So basically, yeah. So what I mentioned as part of reach, right? So basically, let's say if I'm building a feature, I have taken the example of that cash on delivery in Amazon, right? Or maybe one day delivery feature in Amazon, right? So basically, once I define the persona, right? So I, as a product manager, I'm having an idea from the hypothesis that this particular feature will on a high delivery in Amazon, or let's say 5-hour delivery in Amazon, that will be used by 10 lakh customers, right? Or 1 million customer. So that would be my reach. 1 million, that number is my reach. That hypothetical number I should know as part of the product management role. Okay. And similarly, talking about the impact, if I'm adding, let's say 5-hour delivery in the customer in that particular product portfolio, what would be the impact in terms of the metric, right? So let's say if I'm putting a 1-day delivery, it will help customer to order more, right? That I am able to get the product as soon as possible. So it is actually helping you improve the conversion or the success rate, right? So if 10 people are getting into Amazon, you can see that earlier 5 people were able to order just because you have the delivery option of 7 days. But now putting a 5-hour delivery option, you could see that that increment could go, let's say 20% more. So now 7 people would be ordering, right? Considering that particular delivery method. So impact would be taken in terms of percentage, right? That this particular metric will get moved by how much percentage, right? If I am taking conversion, it will be moved by 20%. So that will be my impact in that particular metric. Okay. And confidence is what all data, that 1 million data as part of reach and as part of impact, I have taken 20%. Confidence will actually ask you that how confident you are about the data, the hypothetical data that you have taken. Okay. And confidence numbers could be taken as I'm 50% confident about, or let's say I am 0% or sorry, 10% or 20% confident about, because if I put 0, the numerator will be 0. Okay. So if I'm less confident, I can put, let's say I am 30% confident or 40% confident on the kind of data that I've taken for other attribute, right? And that's how you calculate the numerator and divide by the development effort. Then you come up with a score. Did I answer your question?
Thanks, Ranjan, for that.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so that's these are the things I wanted to cover as part of this session. Okay, any further questions on any of the things that we discussed today?
So not on the prioritization, but yeah, you're someone who has worked in fintechs for large part. So just curious, what would it take for somebody to move from credit risk experience to a product sort of roles?
Basically, so products sort of. So basically, what is the current role of your?
Right. So basically deciding what type of customers to give loans to, what type of product we should offer to customers, what should be a risk policies, uh, and what kind of challenges people face when they're trying to get loans.
Okay, so basically you are there to actually define those business rules or principles as part of the underwriting system, right? That actually decides whether to give give the loan to the customer, right?
Yes.
Okay, so so basically the underwriting system, if we say, right, in general, that is a tool that actually decides based on some data, some civil score or EPFO data, all those banking data.
Yes.
It actually accumulates based on some business rule. It actually tells you whether to give this loan to this particular customer or not, right? So that is itself a product, right? So if I say that if in the banking industry or NBFC industry, that's where you would see people managing as a product manager that underwriting system itself, right? So it's not that you need to actually make a specific effort or a kind of thing basically to get into a product role. You can actually move into product role in the same system you're working in, right? Because you must have seen for underwriting some product manager to look after the underwriting system as a whole, what all things that we can include to improve the scores, right?
Yes. Right. Right. But do you think still the product building experience is necessary? Because like basically when you are in analytics role, what you do is you do a recommendation, and you build nothing, but you recommend what should basically bank or fintech should be doing, what type of customer they should be focusing on, or what should be their pricing or underwriting rules. But nothing gets built on that. Uh, so how can someone get a product building experience?
Okay, so basically, see, if I am understanding the question directly, that basically if you want to move into a product manager role into the same industry where you're working in, right?
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
major thing that the major thing that I would talk about, the two principal rule, okay, is one of the thing is the mindset, right? So product management is not about going through some kind of content and you are a product manager today, right? So it is a process where you actually go through and try to build up that kind of product mindset, product development mindset, right, where you think from a customer perspective, right? That is not something you can actually read some product management book and that will come to you, right? It actually comes up with practice. So in order to actually if you want to move into a product management role, you can talk in your company itself and you can understand there must be some IJP role, right, in your company. That's where you can talk to your the company manager, or maybe the manager who looks after the product managers. You can mention that these are the kind of experience I do have in the industry, right? What are the expectation in terms of job role if I would be taking a product manager role in the same company, right? Am I missing on some of the qualifications or some kind of attributes or decision making that I need to know? Then I will work on it and then I can actually move into product management role. That could be one way to it. That's where it would be comparatively easy to actually get switch into the same company rather than going to this other company as a product manager, because they would be expecting some kind of experience. Is that answer your question?
Right. Thank you.
Because
Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, it does answer. Right.
Anyone else with the question?
Hi Ranjan, myself Raghu. I am also from Wells Fargo, but I am working in data management and commercial banking side of the bank. So I'm working as a functional analyst, and apart from that, I am also working on the SQL data analysis and understanding the data points, all these things. So I would like to understand what kind of different product management roles we can have in terms of domain within a bank. Actually, if I see the job descriptions, I can see product management, product manager description for a Kotak Mahindra bank, where they have to work on assessing the customers and devising, new strategies, new products. So that is kind of altogether different. And when we are working for IT company, we are working on a software product. So basically, these role descriptions are confusing a lot for the one who are aspiring for that role. And my second question is, what are the technical skills that are expected from a product manager? That is my second question. And the last question is, what are the various stakeholders with whom the product manager will interact on a daily basis? So if we given an IT project, if there is a product manager kind of role, will that project also involve the project managers, delivery managers, and from IT side technical teams, developers and testers, and also BAs to some extent? So I am exactly failing to understand what is product manager doing exactly, if there is already a business analyst working from the functional perspective to take care of functional aspects in terms of requirements and all. Because basically there is some what we say commonality between the product management and business analyst. So I would like to understand what exactly the product manager brings onto the table. I'm sorry if my question is too lengthy, but since the session is going to over,
No, that is okay. So basically, I'll start answering your questions. I'll try to answer your second question and third question, and then I'll come to the first question. Okay. So your second question actually asked about the technical roles, right? So basically, the kind of technical acumen or the kind of technical skills a product manager need to have. So it's nowhere written that you need to have a technical skill to become a product manager, right? So it totally depends on the nature of product that you will be looking at. Let's say if I am actually looking at a product maybe that requires more of the customer centric experience, right? Where if I'm trying to build a experience in retail banking, right, where customer comes in on the mobile app and tries to do some activity, right, checking the account balance, doing some new account opening, all those things, right? So from their point of view, you interact with engineers because that is one of the stakeholders, okay? And that's where the better you are as part of technical, it would be easy for you to actually put things on the table, right, and get things done, right? So that is a skill which is not mandatory but a good to have for a product manager. It's nowhere written that you are technically sound to become a product manager, but totally depends on the kind of product you are looking at, and the kind of engineers or the kind of bandwidth that you need to put into engineering side, right? But engineering would anyways be there because a product manager needs to interact with tens of stakeholders in a specific company, right? Where it could be sales, marketing, it could be your business stakeholders, right? It could be your engineering team. You need to interact with the system architect team, right? So there could be tens of stakeholders you need to interact with, depending on what kind of product you are into, and the kind of bandwidth you need to get put into the technical side of it, right? And if let's say if I'm handling, let's say if I'm a product manager who looks after only APIs, it is natural that you need to have a API understanding, right? Otherwise you would not be able to add value into that particular product as a product manager, right? Then coming to the so basically, as part of the second question, I try to answer your third question also, the kind of stakeholders a person needs to interact with. Definitely there could be multiple stakeholders, sales, marketing, engineering would anyways be there. Then you would need to interact with let's say a person who actually looks after the user research, a design team, right? So depending on the kind of product and depending on the company, you will be having different stakeholders, okay? And then coming to the first part, right, the product management PM role, right, what kind of roles it could be. So there could be, if I talk about one company itself, right, there could be if I talk about Wells Fargo itself or Amazon itself, there could be hundreds of product managers in Amazon itself, right? So a product manager would be given a responsibility or area to look after, right? That this is the area and you need to own that area as part of that particular product journey, right? So it's not defined, it's not like that a product manager would be looking at a whole Amazon product, right, as a whole, right? So it would not work like that. So a product manager, depending on the kind of scope of that particular Amazon product or Wells Fargo product he will be looking into, and that's how your role or scope defines, and the kind of stakeholders will also vary as part of that particular product.